Okay, so here we are. Let's talk about recruit training. This is going to be where we start our academy training and where we develop that sixth sense, um, which the sixth sense has been referred to many times by the various courts. Um, and we often hear in the news about how police officers are suspicious of people. It is our training and our experience that gives us that sixth sense, and it is that sixth sense that makes us suspicious. So here's a prime example here from, let's see here, this would come from uh, the real stories of the Freeway Patrol. And you can read right here where the guy is talking about it, and the officer is explaining his suspicion of this fella in the left frame, and in the far right frame you can see how he's asked a question that confirms his suspicions. um, so this is just kind of how we do these sorts of things. um, you know this is also where having that wisdom of Solomon comes in, and knowing how to deal with people and all of that sort of stuff comes in, and it's very important. So then, after the academy, you get sent to your field training officer. And the field training officer is both the most important and the most terrifying individual in any law enforcement agency. This is the most important individual in a law enforcement agency because they are the ones, they are kind of the gatekeepers of the police department. In order for you to become a police officer, I mean, like in Kansas, you get hired and all of this, but for you to actually be released from training and be a police officer, you have to get past the FTO. And so, in in the respect that the FTO is the most important person in the police department, they are the ones who decide who passes field training and who does not. They decide which trainees are acceptable to the profession and who are not, based on their performance in field training. So these people are extremely important. They're the most important people because they shape the future of the agency. They're also the most terrifying individuals in the agency because, as a brand new Daisy Fresh rookie right off of the street or out of the academy, you have to get past these people, and these people are hard. I personally am a field training officer, and it is difficult to get past me in training because I will make sure that you have a sufficient amount of practice and experience with the myriad of things that we do before I ever recommend you to be passed on to the next field trainer. So, and with that, different agencies field train differently. Here in Liberal, we field train with, you go through 3 field trainers, and then you go back to your original field trainer for a final evaluation to be released from training. So your first bit of field training is just kind of an introductory phase where you're introduced to the agency's policies and laws, and you learn geography and things like that. Um, but then the training and evaluation phases, that is where you actually get into the car. You're driving a police car, responding to the radio, going to the calls, and all of that. And this master police officer is sitting in the passenger seat thinking that you're a complete idiot because of the things that you do, that it's like, why can't you understand this? But you are a brand new officer who knows nothing, literally, about what you're doing. sitting in there being trained and evaluated by this master police officer who's in the passenger seat. And it's complicated. It's hard. I mean, the trainee that I have right now he is not struggling in that he's not going to make it, but he is struggling because I am a hard training officer. I bury him under everything I can find to bury him under and tell him to dig himself out, because if he can do that, then whenever I let him go from training, he'll be a well-rounded officer. Once they finish the training and evaluation phases, which is phases 1, 2, and 3, then they go into a final phase where the FTO is strictly an observer, where the trainee officer has their own car and responds to all of their calls, and the FTO follows them around and observes their activity only and reports on it, kind of like Paul Blart, observe and report. And then after they're released from that, then they go on to annual in-service training, which in Kansas requires 40 hours every year. So this is kind of a very important part of the process right here. And here you can see kind of this is a training comic from the Real Stories of the Freeway Patrol of a conversation between an FTO and a trainee, and you can kind of see here how it is that these training incidents go by, and how the FTO is kind of terrifying. So let's talk about the role real quick. So these are very important things that we have listed here: enthusiasm, good communication skills, good judgment, sense of humor, creativity, self-motivation, knowing the job in the system, ego, courage, understanding discretion, tenacity, and thirst for knowledge. I'll get that changed for you. But each of these is an important thing, and I think one that gets overlooked the most is this sense of humor. Everybody assumes that cops have to be these straight-laced, uptight professionals, and personally, I think that's just a thing for administration, because I can't tell you. I mean, earlier this week, I was standing out on the side of the road talking to a Canadian truck driver from the province of Manitoba, while my trainee and a canine handler were searching his truck. And he and I were sitting over there just about ready to roll out into traffic. We were laughing so hard. You don't have to be this stick in the mud just because you're a police officer. I honestly believe that sense of humor gets overlooked entirely way too much. So real quick, like here, we have the 4 basic tasks of law enforcement, which is enforcing the laws, performing welfare tasks, preventing crime, and protecting the innocent. And you'll see here that I've kind of got some percentages that look a little squiffy, but we spend about 5% of our time actually enforcing the law. We spend about 15% of our time preventing crime by driving around, having an officer presence, doing things like that. We perform welfare tasks such as checking up on people, removing stuff out of the roadway, things like that, about 80% of the time. We spend a lot of our time doing this welfare stuff. But you'll see there that I have 100% of our time is spent protecting the innocent. And that is absolutely true, because it doesn't matter how much time we spend doing any of the rest of it. Our job 100% of the time is to protect the innocent. So I'll stop here and we'll move on into the next video after this.